audible there? A very, very good morning to all of you, and I'm quite excited to be out here. It's a very special time to be on planet Earth, and I prefer to call myself a digitalist, a moniker that I've coined basis my inspired serial called The Mentalist, if some of you have seen it, because I love digital data and the interactions with humans. And that's a cutting edge. Next 15 minutes, I hope I won't bore you. I've already been given the task of keeping it energetic, so let's see how we are doing today. Now, why I said we are at a very momentous occasion is something really dramatic happened around 2006, 2007. Now, all of you in the room, any guesses when did real work or the first seminal work on artificial intelligence actually happened? Any guesses? Which year? Sorry? Anybody else? How many of you think is right? Yeah? All right. So it is actually 1950s that's the work on AI started. Similarly, on quantum, a lot of work started in 1960s and 70s. But it's all coming together now. And what happened in 2006-07, if you have read Thomas Friedman and book called Thank You for Coming Late, it talks about a lot of things coming together in 2006-07. You see the rise of social media, you see the rise of nanochips, you see certain discoveries on gene, biotech, etc. Many things just happened. And that's why it's an age of accelerations. I call it the Moore's law at play. The pace at which technology is advancing is almost doubling every 2 years. That was for chips. I'm saying it applies to human society as well. Now, in that context, this is what it looks like in terms of different industries and different tech specs, right? It's a report prepared by a very interesting article on tech trends, and they've tried to map in terms of which technology is disrupting what, right? And interestingly, if you see the entire, I don't know if the pointer is working, but if you see the AI space clearly, everybody's talking about it. We have blockchain, or Web3 is a subset of blockchain. And you also have a lot of stuff happening on the AR and VR front, drone technology. These are stuff which are changing our lives today. Having said that, what really I want to talk about here is not a landscape of tech, but each of us are experiencing and reading about technologies every single day. The question is what's relevant and what's not. But before we jump into that, let's also look at what's happening on the customer side. I call it an era of customer revolution. Many of you may have seen on Netflix, it's a complete book. It's a thesis on how they are going about hyper-personalization, right? So, for example, Stranger Things, one of the most popular series, you see there are more than 6-7 kinds of tiles on showing the ad, right? It entices people. Now, they've got a whole research. What kind of characters, what kind of images, what kind of JPEGs to show to various user sets so that their probability of consuming the content is higher. Now, this is for one. There's a whole model on their thousands and lakhs of titles that they have. So this is one extreme example of hyper-personalization to attract engagement. And this is a term that all of us talk about, right? Is there anybody who's not talking about personalization and hyper-personalization in your organization? Anyone? A yes or a no, please. Can you be a bit louder? Is there anybody who's talking about it? All right. So now, but what about this company? They don't do anything on personalization per se as far as their core product is concerned. People go to McDonald's because they know that is the standard fare. The French fries will taste exactly the same as they tasted last month and at every particular outlet. In fact, if the taste varies, there is a customer disconnect, right? So hyper-personalization to standardization, and then there is a mid-path of a customization, right? Now, why I want to bring this theme out is that all three models coexist, and they'll continue to coexist. It's a question of the right fit at the right occasion, and what is the need that you're catering to. Yes, consumers want individual choices, but at the same time, they want things which they can rely upon. So that's one construct. Similarly, the other theme that's coming out is a construct of omni-channel. Again, we keep talking about omni-channel, but here is one company which has taken 6 years almost to decide and figure out how to offer a web interface access to a mobile-first customer. It took them 6 years to figure out, not that technology wasn't there, but whether they should offer it, how they should offer it, that entire experience took so much time. And then on banking, a model which is 500 years old, and technology being one of the first primary drivers of the segment since last 2 decades, is something that it's been figuring out, because a customer comes on an ATM, on a branch, on your mobile. How do you ensure that the customer is having the similar experience in terms of their offers, in terms of their services, and they expect the bank to remember you? Big challenge. Let me tell you a secret. I don't think any company in this world has really cracked the code of omnichannel. And if anybody says that they know it all, they have done it, would love to hear about it, but everybody's on their journey. There are challenges about it, which we'll talk shortly. The other theme that's playing out very remarkably is that India is getting premiumized. The maximum spends are happening not in the 140 crore group, but actually there are 10 crore consuming populations, out of which there are 2 crore consumers who are really spending, and this number of 2 crores is likely to increase to 5 to 8 crores in the next 10 years. But guess what? Premiumization is not just in urban areas. It's also happening in rural areas. In fact, the rural demand, if you see the recent survey that came out after a lag of 11 years, by the way, clearly shows that how basic commodities are actually getting, there's a flattening of the consumption, and people are moving towards higher value products. And hence, if any of you have heard of a company called Cuckoo FM, right? They are the ones who are actually making profits, catering to people in the rural segments and suburban areas. Now, we all talked about bottom of the pyramid maybe 2 decades back. The game is all lying at the top of the pyramid, just that the top is now becoming broader, but yet it is very concentrated. The other phenomenon is clearly the rise of experimentation. We have consumer groups who want to experiment. They want to try out new brands, new choices. So customer loyalty is on a decline. But then, having said that, there is another instance where the share prices and the profitability is actually growing, and grown significantly in the last 10 years. Here you are, the Indian hotels. So what does it mean? Brand and this? 2 things. One, loyalty is coming down, but people are paying for experiences. And number 2, the game is not so much, in my opinion, about the share of wallet as much as it is now about retaining customers. So if you can retain customers and give consistently good experiences, you will win. But most interestingly, unlike in the past, the margin of error is lower now. So you don't get that much of latitude to make mistakes and break customer experiences. You will have to continuously live up to that and keep improving, keep learning, and keep offering a good experience. So what does it all mean? There's one area I want to talk about, because we all talked technology in the first slide. Now let's see what's happening here. India has a unique model of digital public infrastructure. I would say we are the first country in the world, in the history of this planet, which has created its own template of actually creating public infrastructure on the digital space. So just like the US invested in the highways and the railroads in the 1940s and 50s, India has invested in this in the last couple of decades. And as a result, you are seeing some fascinating innovations happening. All of you have used Aadhaar, all of you have used the UPI, these are matured digital stacks. But what's coming up, and I'll just talk about 2 of them. My previous esteemed speakers did talk about Abha and the innovations that are happening on the health space. There are 2 interesting things. I don't know if you have heard of the account aggregator. Any of you have heard about account aggregator? A raise of hands, please. All right, and what about ONDC? Okay, so it's around 5 to 10%. Great, so I'll just spend a minute on that. If you look at the account aggregator space, the fundamental construct is, in India, there are some 12 to 13 regulators in the financial services space, right from SEBI to RBI to IRDA. Now what's happening in the construct is, we are bringing together all of these into one ecosystem, and as a consumer, you will have right on your data. So there's a data framework, there's a consent framework, and you can decide what data gets shared with whom for what purpose. That's a big change. Number 2, therefore, the financial institutions can access your particular data for that service they want to offer to you. So imagine when you have to take say a big home loan. Now, while it's not live right now, but that's where we are moving. You want to take a home loan, it's almost a 1-month process. You have to give all your documents, your papers of property, your evaluation, your credit score. Now with this, you have a digital KYC that happens in a matter of a few minutes or seconds. You have the land records being digitized, and that ensures that there is a title, etc. It's a long way away, still 5 years, I would say. But you get all that information, your bank statements, your mutual fund statements, everything comes in one place. And within a matter of a few seconds, they can decide how much money you can get. And imagine you're sitting in front of the developer right then on the app, you'll know that, okay, perhaps I can take a 1 crore loan. Great, let me plan my finances. What more? A lot of personal finance management tools can be developed. You can get nudges on your mobile app or at your convenience, which will tell you, you know what, this month you are exceeding your budget, or maybe, you know what, the small cap correction is actually not so bad, you are being greedy. So all of that comes in with this access. It's completely disruptive. In the next 3 to 4 years, you will see massive shift in how you experience financial services. Similarly with ONDC, if you are into commerce, any kind, any company, be it pharmaceuticals, be it FMCG, be it health, anything, you are able to get access to close to 4 crore MSMEs. And those 4 crore MSMEs can get access to almost 1.4 billion users. That's the landscape opportunity, because now you have disaggregated and then rebuilt the entire construct of platforms. So you have buyers, you have sellers brought together through a local e-commerce. So it's hyper-local, hyper-connected, and yet there are a lot of companies now coming together. You want to experience a local delicacy in Bengal, you can order it and it arrives in Mumbai in 2 hours. So that's the way the India's model. I remember I was studying about McDonaldization, how US actually exported McDonald's throughout the world and tried to create the soft power of US. Today, a small town can exert that power in a large city like Mumbai and vice versa. So we are creating our own models and templates, and it's very fascinating to be part of the story. All right. So, however, all said and done, there are few concerns. And while I was coming to this place, somebody talked about Denwin or Dena. I'm not quite sure. I'll check that. It's Dena. It's the first artificial intelligence software engineer. It just got launched yesterday. Devin, sorry? Yeah, thank you. Thanks for correcting me. So it's just got launched yesterday. Now, good, bad, ugly, artificial super intelligence is about to come. I've been writing about it since last 7-8 years. 2032 is my prediction, when the collective computing power will be bigger, more powerful than collective humanity. So what does it mean? How are we going to coexist? That's one big challenge. Second, what happens to the data? Data privacy, data security, how is that going to be managed? Is quantum computing going to come and hack all my passwords and all my bank accounts? We as corporates or as startups, we keep hearing about technologies. The question is, are we getting into a FOMO? Just because somebody is doing, we should also do it. How do you decide what's the right investment? And then you have a question of data privacy. Phishing attacks, voice impersonations. Somebody, it's a big reputational risk for the brands on social, as well as in terms of security and impersonations that can happen. All of you may have seen some of the recent videos. That's going to only increase. How is that going to be tackled? And, okay, so it's all garbled, but bigger problem also is in terms of organization, people. There's a big resistance often to actually accept change. The biggest challenge I see in organizations is most of the product managers, customer experience managers, marketing managers, they are struggling to even realize how is the world shifting, how is the world changing, and how should organizations tackle it. So what's the summary? It's a long debate. We can spend a lot of time, but I would like to summarize a few nuggets in 3 parts. I call it the 3 Ps: platform, people, and process. So platform, I think most important. Whenever we are investing and deciding on what technologies to take, think like a platform, not like a monolithic software. What do I mean? A platform is modular. You build something through a lot of APIs, and then you allow plug and play components. You can have hundreds of vendors. You can have a bot on some piece. You can have an experience layer which is different. You can have a processing layer which is different. But it's important to modularize it, because tomorrow if some technology goes obsolete, you can just remove. We've got 5 minutes, right? You can remove, plug and play. And that reduces your cost of obsolescence. Many companies get it wrong because we end up buying stacks from vendors. We don't realize that they sell us the whole suite because that's how they lock you in. But that suite makes part of your entire system monolithic. and you're not able to play around. So be it a SaaS product, be it a platform, but take modules and then try to make it plug and play as a hyper-connected system. 5 years down the line, I envisage a world where most of the tech softwares of any company would be lying on a cloud, and they'll be hyper-connected as platforms. So if you have in-house premises, on-prem systems, it's going to be a challenge to innovate, and actually the cost of ownership will be much higher. Second thing, technology is all about garbage in, garbage out. You can have any kind of technology and a bot, and somebody gave a good example of that AI tool, but if your processes are not right, if you can't design your customer experience journey, the entire moments of truth, the pain points, the happy scenarios, the failure scenarios, you can have the best of technologies, they won't work. Even if you have the best of artificial intelligence, at the end of the day, it's still artificial. So, processes are the most underrated, abused things in organizations. But the way I see organizations is an organization is nothing but a network of processes where data is flowing. A data or information about customers, about employees, about your product, services, finance, it's all about processes. So a good CX cannot happen without a great process. Technology is secondary. And most important, people. Customer experience or technology is not a technology's job. It is not a strategy team's job. It's not a customer experience team's job. It is your job, my job. It is every employee's job. Just like people used to learn history, geography, mathematics in their class 10, 12, and now they've started learning coding, design thinking. Some of the basic tenets of how the new technologies are coming are basic table stakes. So it's very important to upgrade, and then only technology and people can work together. And I can spend a lot of time on this, but this is one area where there's a lot of science, and I'm sure all of us who have been implementing or experiencing these things, there are too many nuggets. But one thing that has worked very well in my experiences, especially in large organizations, is how do you break the silos? Because you have to innovate fast. And one model that works very well is Agile. So Agile is a concept that has come from software development, but I've seen its application beautifully even in non-software purposes. So if you have marketing teams, you have production teams, if you can break them into Agile pods and have a 30-day, 45-day sprint and try to innovate together, it can cut a lot of boundaries and bring in a lot of efficiency. And finally, it's not about technology alone. India is never going to be Estonia, which is almost 98% digital. We are a phygital market. We would need interactions between humans and technologies. So whenever we design something, please keep that in mind. You will have a physical distribution or a supply chain which is not just completely automated in most cases. And then, I'll just like to pip on one simple note is this particular thing. The chatbot asked, why did it quit its job instead of a tried of being treated as a real person? The reason I'm trying to say is this is all this hoopla about customer experience, and especially technology-led customer experience, very important to remember, it has to be humanized at the end of the day. A time will come where I can already see that, there is almost fatigue, especially among millennials and Gen Zs. There's a fatigue of technology, social, data, amount of content that's flowing through. But what people are really yearning for is that human touch, which is not there. It's actually reducing because people don't have time. People don't have connections. We have moved everything online. So therefore, if you have a chatbot, great, but people are still looking for that emotion. They're still looking for that connection. So at the end of the day, a human-centered design is what is paramount. And I think that is at a big, big paucity in India. My only inspiration is the way the digital public infrastructure has come along. It's our indigenous innovation. And therefore, as a country, as men and women in this room, and as people who are driving change, who are part of this great acceleration for this country, I exhort myself that let's be part of this change. Let's add on to what's happening. Let's create a human-centered model for India so that we don't talk about job losses. We actually work together with technology and create a developed India in the next 10, 15 years. Thank you so much.